Okay, so the next decision-making situation we're going to look at is the closure of loss-making lines or production departments. And this will be the fourth one we're looking at. We've got two more after this, and the next two are less mathematical and more essay-based. Now, this one's always a good one for those big essays, so expect to get one of these towards the end of your paper. So let's have a look at it. So sometimes a business might have to decide whether to close down a production line or a department. So a business might have lots of different production lines, lots of different departments. Some of them, well, hopefully most of them will make a profit. Some might make a loss. So from time to time, a business might have to think, right, is it worth shutting down this production line? So what we're going to look at are the advantages and disadvantages of doing that, and we're going to hopefully come up with a rule about when we should do that. So first of all, I want you to think, what are the different reasons for wanting to close down a production line or department? So have a think, why might a business close down part of their production and stop producing one type of good, for example? So like if you're McDonald's, why might you stop selling Big Macs, for example? Okay, and hopefully come up with some ideas. So if a product's making a loss, you might want to shut it down, you might not. We'll look at that one the most. You might have people who aren't skilled doing that job. People might retire, so you haven't got anyone who's a specialist in Big Macs anymore. There might be reducing demand for the product, so people might stop wanting Big Macs and they all might want vegan burgers these days. And it might be seasonal, so the product might shut down in winters and open up again in springs. So let's look at an example to highlight the case of what happens if we do shut down a department. So there's two products, A and B, and this is on your handout. So some of the tables filled in for you already, some's not. So can you have a go just fill it in yourself before you look at the next bit? And the filled in table should look like this. Yeah, so remember, to get contribution, it's sales, take away variable costs. Then we take away from the contribution, we take away the fixed costs to get our profit or our loss. Now in this example, there was two types of fixed costs: the direct fixed costs, so the ones that go towards a specific product, and common fixed costs, which could be costs that are shared between the products. So it looks like product A is making a loss of 38,000 and product B is making a profit of 34,000. So overall, that makes a loss of £4,000. And for the total column, just add up the product A and product B columns. So you might look at that and you might think, right, we need to shut down product A because it's making a big loss and that's impacting the overall profit and loss. So let's look at what happens if we do decide to stop product A. So the direct fixed costs for A will not need to be paid. However, the common fixed costs, so that could be stuff like the rent, electricity, all that kind of stuff, they will still need to be paid. So we're going to add them on to product B's common fixed costs. So I've just filled in the table for you now. So as you can see, product A is blank now. And product B, well, the top bit stays the same. The sales, the variable cost, contribution, we're going to assume that all stays the same. That doesn't change. When in reality, the sales will always change. People might buy more or less, depending on the reasons we'll discuss in a bit. The direct fixed costs stay the same. The common fixed costs, we've added on the fixed costs from product A to the 43,000. So that's raised our total fixed costs to 311,000. So now we're making a loss of 9,000. So in fact, by stopping product A, we've created more of a loss by £5,000. So in this case, it would have made sense to keep product A going and look at ways of improving its profitability. Okay, so that's one example of where shutting something down just because it's making a loss might not be the best thing to do. Now, obviously, there's other non-financial factors, which we'll discuss more in the next couple of examples. So the next one, we've got a car company producing 3 vehicles and the details of the law. So those numbers are in thousands. So the 800cc car, it's making sales of 420,000, not just £420. That'd be a really cheap car. So can you have a go at filling in the profit and loss for the 3 types of cars and then the total? So that's what we should get. The 800's making a loss, whereas the other 2 are making a profit. So we've got a bit more information now. We're told that the total costs comprise of 2/3 variable and 1/3 fixed. So the costs are in the ratio of 2 to 1 for variable and fixed. Remember, variable, they're the cost that goes towards making the actual 1 extra unit, whereas the fixed, they're the ones like your rent, your electricity, all those kind of bills that have to be paid regardless how many you actually sell. So the directors consider that as the 800cc cars are making a loss, it should be discontinued. So what's your thoughts about that? So press pause and just think. If you were a director, what would you think about closing down that product line? So hopefully you're thinking about, if it is discontinued, then what would happen to the fixed costs? They'll likely still need to be paid. You still need to pay the rent, electricity, so they'll probably reduce the profit of the others. And what happens to the staff working on that line? Will they be made redundant? Will they get put on a different line? Do they have the skills to work on the different lines? How would they feel about working with a new group? So they're the non-financial factors you can think about. So you can see how we're building up a kind of essay kind of answer to a question. Okay, so a better solution, instead of just looking at profit and loss, is to do a marginal costing statement. So remember, that goes sales, variable costs, contribution, fixed costs, and profit. So I've just copied across the sales. So the variable costs, they were just 2/3 of the total costs. So I just worked out 2/3 of each of those costs for you. Divide by 3 times by 2. Take it away from the sales to get the contribution. So there's the contribution for each one. Then the fixed costs, which is 1/3 of the total costs for this example. So divide them by 3. And then take it away from the contribution to get the profit. So as you can see there, that's more detail. So if you look at the 800cc cars, they're making a loss of 30,000. But if you look at the contribution is 120,000. So I'll just summarize that in the table. So what's your thoughts now? Have they changed? Have they stayed the same? So do you still think we should shut the 800cc cars? Okay, so this time, hopefully, we've spotted that it's making a contribution of £120,000. So that means that from the sales, once it's paid off its variable costs, it's still paying £120,000 towards its fixed costs. So it's still bringing in a lot of money towards paying the other bills. So if it did close that line, then those fixed costs of £150,000 will still need to be charged to the other 2 lines. So that means overall it will reduce the profit by the contribution by 120,000, because you'll still need to pay the 150,000, but you'll not be getting the sales. So therefore, the profit will reduce by 120,000. So that'll have a big impact on the overall profit. So closing that line might not be the best thing to do either. So instead of closing it, why don't we think about other options? And again, we'll explore these more in a bit. Could we try and increase the selling price of the 800cc cars? Could we try and sell more cars? Or could the production of those cars be more efficient so that we lower the costs to make them?